Hello everyone, this is our next video of Fortinet NSE 4 series, and today video we will going to learn firewall authentication, local and remote. So let's begin the video. The first topic of this video will be the remote authentication. So it includes the authentications of users and groups. It is more reliable than just IP address and device type authentications. User must authenticate by entering a valid credentials. After FortiGate identifies the user or device, FortiGate applies firewall policies and profiles to allow or deny each specific network resource. So basically, what is meaning by the remote authentication? So in the remote authentications means that the user ID and password, let's say we are a firewall administrator and we want to access a firewall for the administrative purpose, and we want to create a policies and other things. So we must have some kind of LDAP server or radius servers or TCAS servers. So our identity will be kept it on that particular server, and once that servers will be integrated to our FortiGate firewall, once we enter our user ID and password for the authentication, that user ID password will send to the LDAP server, and server will authenticate and redirects back to FortiGate with the authentication session that that the particular user will allowed or it will be the denied. So this is a remote authentication. So it is more reliable because we are authenticating users based on their user and group types instead of only the source IP address was used. The other method of the FortiGate methods of firewall authentication, the first will be the local password authentications. In this method, the user ID and password of local firewall administrator is stored on the FortiGate firewall, and once that user ID password will enter by a firewall administrator, then FortiGate performs authentication based on provided user ID password and match with the local hosted database. If that information is correct, then user granted for firewall access. And the second will be the server based authentication, that includes the radius, LDAP and TACAX plus. These are the technologies that will integrate to the FortiGates for the remote based authentication process. And the third topic is like a two-factor authentication. So in this method, some token or certificate needs to be have, like once we enter our TechX user ID password, the second factor will be, let's say Google, let's say Duo or Google Authenticator or the Microsoft Authentication. You have to enter the 6 digit of the passcode to complete the two-factor authentication. Once that happened, then you can access the FortiGate firewall. So this is the another way of authentications. Complete. The first will be the authentication is like remote based or local, and second will be the second factor authentication or two-factor authentication. So in this PPT I have added that what are the steps to create a local user password. We have to select the user authentication, and once on the user authentication, need to select user definition, then user type. First step will be the user type. Here we have to select the local user and then identify the credentials, contact info and extra info. User account status is enabled and okay. Once that's saved, user will ask for the authentication. User have to provide the particular user and ID and password, and then user will grant for the firewall access or authentication will completed successfully. And other will be the server based authentication. So server based authentications, in this way the accounts are stored on the remote authentication server, which I explain you. And the authentication server will be the LDAP or Radius or TechX plus. Administrator can do one of the following things: create an account the user locally and specify the server to verify the password, add an authentication server to user group or users that become members of the group. So it means that let's say user has entered the user and password that on the FortiGate send with that user and password to the remote server, means that authentication mechanism like radius, TKS and LDAP. Then that server will respond that or this is authentication is successful. Then user can access the FortiGate firewall. That is the process. And the next will be the server-based firewall, server-based password authentication. So in this step, how we can create the server-based authentications. So the first will be the create users on the FortiGate and add remote users on authentication servers to user group. So this is the user group remote access, and in this case, this is the user groups. We will keep this. This is the basically groups. And how we can add these authentications. Here we have options the user types and then remote users, remote radius users and username, and then radius server. So I will show you in this the next video. I will show you on the FortiGate firewall how we can configure local user administrator as well as the remote user authentications, as also I will show you how we can integrate our LDAP servers on the FortiGate firewall. So this is the theory part of that firewall authentication. So just I have kept some screenshots of this user accounts. And the last topic of this video will be the LDAP overview. So basically the LDAP is the most commonly used by all organizations, a commonly protocol. So they stand for very lightweight directory access protocol. So this is also a directory services which is running on the Microsoft's AD. So most of the firewall FortiGate or other vendors also, if I talk about the Palo Alto or Checkpoints and other companies, so most our customers are using LDAP as a authentication process. So LDAP is an application protocol for accessing, maintaining distributed directory information services. So in this, let's say this is the LDAP client, means the FortiGate. It will integrate to the DSA, directory system integrated, and user have to provide the username and password, and then it will be authenticated by directory services. And TCP port 389 and LDAP, this is port number used for the LDAP is 389. Another is the 636, that is the secure one. LDAP maintains authentication data, includes departments, people, password, email address and printers. LDAP consists of the data representation scheme, a set of defined operations and a request and response network. Binding is the operations in which LDAP server authenticates the users. So this is also a response mechanism that LDAP is using for their, once the user is successful for the authentication, then binding will trigger to authenticate the user. So that's it for this video. In next video we will understand more about the firewall authentication process, and will show you that how we can configure users and remote groups on the FortiGate firewall. So that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed this video a lot. Thanks for watching.